Welcome to Building Inclusive Digital Communities with Josh Hotsinpiller and Megan Martin. Discover how that human connection actually accelerates business objectives. Get ready to transform and grow.
Well, welcome everyone. We're so excited to have you here with another episode of Building Inclusive Digital Communities. And I am so excited to have Anthea join us today. Welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, because what our readers or listeners probably don't know is we actually met in a digital community, in an event professional community that we both kind of work in. We have the same title at our companies, head of engagement. And so I reached out just wanting to learn more about you, because this is kind of a unique title and role that you and I have found ourselves in. So tell us a little bit about you as head of engagement at OfferZen.
I love that. And it's definitely a unique title. In fact, initially I was appointed to head up events at OfferZen, and I kind of advocated for making it a bit more broad beyond just simply doing events. So at the moment, I care about how we connect people externally to our brand. And that is across events and swag and PR. And so really just telling the OfferZen story in a really meaningful way with the people that we want to engage with. And so that's why the title of engagement just made a lot more sense. My background is a bit different. So I have a more of comms background, comms and PR. So worked in financial services and then transitioned into the startup space in Africa, which was quite exciting. And before that, I worked in politics. So I actually worked in the political space in South Africa, which is what my educational background was. Funny thing or interesting thing probably about me is I got my first job at 16. I really wanted to move into the news space. So I reached out to a local radio station, and I was like, I really want to get involved with news production, news reading, those sorts of things. And I think 2 weeks later, I was on air reading the news, compiling the news and producing it. So yeah, I've been telling stories since then and really love this idea of, creating unique connections with our community through engagement.
I absolutely love that. So tell me a little bit about how storytelling plays into your role of connecting people. I mean, obviously you've been working in the digital space. I mean, I consider airwaves also digital space. I mean, that's probably the first bout of digital we've ever had in our life was radio. So how does that and storytelling kind of translate into your community engagement?
I think that's a great question. What we can all agree that is universal is that stories connect us. It is a way for us to not only bring, our histories and our values and our personalities to life, but it's also a way to really ignite creativity in others, which is I really enjoy doing. So for me, this is central to how you build communities, really telling the story of what a community is and what it can be. I think too, one of the first major events that I did, which was at a financial services company, where we were just moving into the digital space in terms of discovering what digital means for products and services in the industry. And one way of bringing that to life for people is to bring in people who are actually working on super innovative products and services to make that real. Right, and to tell the stories of failure and success and the journeys of why they, built these sorts of things to inspire creativity and get people excited about the potential for digital. So for me, it's essential and integral to how we build communities. Bringing those stories to life. The challenge often is finding the stories. We all have stories to tell. But it's, how can you get, the insightful question that will take you just beyond sort of the surface level of, the deeper motivations, understanding the deeper whys, and really the kind of questions that bring in the whole spectrum of their experience and not just a linear way of telling a story. And that's the more difficult part.
Sure.
What's great for me is I've worked with people and continue to work with people, certainly in the PR space, where you have to sit and you have to listen and you have to ask the questions and you have to, find that ways of getting the stories out of people. And then you take that and then you package it in a way that can be super relevant and attractive and interesting for the people that you want to engage with. And then you kind of just iterate as you go along. So it's essential part of community building. It's essential part of bringing people together, but also sparking creativity amongst community.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I think all the stories are important because we talk a lot about meeting people where they are. And so being able to have everyone feel included in that and meeting you where they are and meeting you, where you need to be and the information you're looking for, that requires a lot of different stories because what you're maybe looking out of your community is different than mine. And so having those diverse voices and stories, I think really builds some inclusion. And the digital is so
Absolutely.
important because it reaches everyone where they are. Like you don't have to rely on in person or just geographic bounds. I mean, you're literally on the other side of the world from me right now, and we're still connecting and engaging and building a relationship. So I think that's incredible what you guys do. So thinking about that and your event role, and so how does community and events play together in your space? You talked about how you are in charge of working with events and community and connecting that with your brand that you work with. And so how do those all play together? Like, how do you leverage your events and community and also then support business growth, for your company? How do those mix?
Love that. So within the engagement team at OfferZen, so my team, there are three main levers that we use, and events is one of them. What's great about events, specifically within the community context, it's almost it's intentional, but a natural forum for bringing people together. And what's great about online events, and I guess in-person events as well, is that you can have different roles within your audience or within your community. So you might have people that just want to come and just want to experience and learn and take from your speakers or whatever the case may be, or you have people that actively want to troubleshoot and problem solve because they're coming in with something very specific. And then there are people who are just invested in making sure that the connections happen, and I want to speak to as many people as possible, etc. So events for me is almost a natural way to foster and grow community. There are loads of other ways. For instance, you can have discussion forums, you can have different event formats. You can have different offshoots of community, whether it's, mentorship, all of those sorts of things. But events is just one natural way to do that. And then because of the different roles, it's easy for people to plug in whatever context they're coming from. One other thing we do is Swag, which I mentioned earlier, which is a largely marketing function. But the way we look at it is Swag as a way to connect people around shared language, shared ideas, shared craft. So for us, the community element there is every single one of our designs when it comes to Swag is co-created with the community. So we have a huge investment in growing with our community. So what we do, that whole ideation process for design is based on speaking to the community, conducting user chats, giving the feedback, getting more feedback, iterating as you go along, and then ultimately, before you even get to presenting the ideas to the business, you kind of have something that's bought into by your community that they will advocate for once it's out there, and they will really champion it because they feel part of what you've created. And then the last thing is just how we create experiences across both of this. For interaction with the community. So from an event perspective, making sure that we're able to get the right people into a room, the people that's going to help us achieve the goal for our event, get the right people to know about when we, doing Swag or whatever the case may be, so they can advocate for it and share it and bring in that way, grow our community even more. And then tying that back to business metrics, I think is a lot easier in a sense. So certainly from an events perspective, there's a traditional way of thinking about B2B events, which is you want to engage new leads and you want to nurture existing leads. And then obviously there's a brand awareness component to that as well. For me, it is having a deep understanding of your personas and the people that you want to engage, whether it's a buyer persona or just someone that's in, the ecosystem. Understanding them really well means you can craft events, content, get speakers that will resonate with them. And in that way, you can hit business metrics of getting the right leads into the room, and then work with internal stakeholders on how to convert that to actual business value. Ultimately, for both of those, it starts with what are we creating for the individual, right? So if you take out all the information that you have about the persona and their likes and dislikes and all of those sorts of things, and at what point they buy and what point they don't buy, you start with, am I creating something of value that will help this person and will help me achieve the goal of whatever this event is? So for community, for us, it is largely around, specifically on the tech community side, the goal is how can we help you level up in your tech career? Let's start with that. Obviously, using OfferZen to find a job, that's great because that means our business keeps running and you win at getting a next job. But we don't all look for a job, every other month or every other week. So in between, the community building for us is helping people level up in their career. So giving them access to mentorship, helping them write about their experiences and share it, connecting at events and with speakers that can inspire them and can share their own failures and learnings, and then making sure that we are investing in community organizers who are doing the same thing. And in that way, building brand credibility, building trust within the community, and getting them to like us means that ultimately, when they are ready, we hope that they will use OfferZen to find a job. So metrics are built in, and for me as head of engagement, the most important thing is understanding the metrics that we are working towards to make business sense, but also championing the customer and the person that we are building for. And that's an individual community, and it's a person that we are crafting content, bringing speakers, and that's really important. So balancing that is hard, but I think it's more than possible if you have the clarity.
No, and I think that's a great point of, we talk a lot about on this podcast, going back to your why. Simon Sinek's been mentioned many times with his book of Why. And, it's not why this is important to the business. You hit it right on the head of why is this important to your audience, bringing that community on the journey with you, seeking their input. That's how we get to inclusivity of not just inviting everyone to be part of the community, but to feel contributing to part of the community or contributing to the event. I'm much more likely to show up to the event or show up to the community when I have a sense of purpose there, or I feel like my feedback was actually heard and listened, and I want to keep giving back to that community, right? So I think the way you approach it is so important, and just the absolute right take on it, because that's really, at the end of the day, we're all humans, and what are we doing to support you? So I love that you think about not just we want to help you find a job, but we want to help make sure your skills are advancing and upskilling. So when you're ready for that next job, you already know where to go. You've already been engaged with the brand. You have the community of people to support you. I absolutely love that. So how do you guys leverage technology to accomplish some of this? So with your community building, you talked about the intentionality with your swag, which I think you might be the only people that think that way about it. I mean, I've worked for a number of brands and we've spent more money than I would care to admit over the years on swag that always just kind of felt like this was cool or this will be easy. There wasn't always a rhyme or reason to it. So I love that you guys, seek feedback from your community. What are we doing? We're not just buying tchotchkes to buy them, right? So thinking about that and how intentional you are, how do you leverage technology in your events, in your community building, to build that inclusivity? And going back to meeting people where they are, that's the best way to leverage technology to meet them. How do you guys approach that and sprinkle tech into your approach?
So I'm going to answer this in two parts. So I think technology in itself is incredibly useful for finding communities that might be overlooked or just underserved. right? So not only when you are building community, so how do you make sure that you're getting more diverse attendees, people with different views, backgrounds, and perspectives into the room, which just makes your community better. So if you have more of that, so finding them, but then also it's great for kind of battle testing and seeing and finding different perspectives, which I think is really useful. So for me personally, I'm part of a few, tech community Slack, for example.
Yeah.
And it's not only, it's great for, engaging with the community where they are, but it's also really useful for getting that sort of feedback. Like, where should we be looking, where should we be marketing our events to make sure that we are bringing in more diversity and being more inclusive, making sure that we use technology to get feedback, right? So from an enabling perspective, technology can really help discover where those communities are playing, what you can do and how you can reach out to them and what's effective. And oftentimes it's not just seeing it as an outlet. So I'm not just posting an event into a forum and hoping for the best that the people will come. It is actually being an active part of that community, contributing, sharing knowledge, sharing experiences. And in that way you build up the credibility so that when you have opportunities that people would want to support and want to participate. And then obviously using technology to not only run our events, but the important data and insight that we get from integrating it into our events. So from a business perspective, you are reporting on, titles and, companies that you brought in and all of those sorts of things. What's their intention? Do they want to find a job right now or not? Which is great. And you can definitely use that to help on the business metric side, but then you can also see how people are engaging, right? So you know who you are attracting. You can understand whether this is the right kind of people. What is the composition of the group, and that's really insightful. Obviously, where people volunteer and share their information. So that's the first thing. So you can understand who's coming, how are they engaging. Are they asking questions? Are they disengaged? Are they dropping off midway through the call, et cetera, et cetera? And then you can use this to build specific community metrics that will tell you whether you're moving in the right direction in terms of elevating diverse voices, being more inclusive, et cetera. So for me, technology in that two parts is it's useful for finding the communities, finding the attendees that you want to bring into your spaces, but be an active participant, whether it's on Slack, whether it is through events, whatever that forum is. And then running events, integrating technology into how you run events can give you just so much information that you can use to then calibrate how you actually do this. So, just understanding how people are engaging, seeing the status background, who's attending, is incredibly useful, and technology can help us do that.
Oh, I think that's a great point. I was, reading an article yesterday about scientific meetings, and women don't raise their hand to ask questions at in-person meetings, but yet most of the meetings I go to, we're still passing around microphones. And I'm like, why couldn't we use a technology where I can submit questions? Because I'm one of those people. I'm never going to stand in front of a microphone. I'm much more comfortable asking questions online or somewhere where I'm not going to have to stand up in a room of strangers and, potentially embarrass myself with, there are dumb questions. People say there's no dumb questions. There are dumb questions, and I don't want to be one to ask them. And so I think that's a great point of thinking of unique ways to use technology and engaging with your community. One other point you made just a second ago was you being an active participant in the community. And so you've talked a lot about, getting feedback from your community, making them part of the decision-making process, making them part of the conversation, and using that as feedback. How do you do that without just always asking? Like, being an active participant in your community, what does that really mean?
I love that question because I think it speaks to the heart of how we think about community and how we approach it at OfferZen, which is that we invest a lot of our own money in making community happen. So whether it's sponsoring community events, whether it's creating events where people can come together, tech communities to come together and play with new tech and build new things. So firstly, it's putting your money where your mouth is. So it's not just about, we want to build communities, but you don't actually have business intent behind it. And when you do that, you do that consistently, you show up consistently, it really creates a level of trust between you and the community, which, is invaluable. So just starting with, building trust, putting your money where your mouth is, and really making that core to how you think about business, community within your business is essential. And in that way, you feel a lot more invested, but the community then also, right? So if they're saying that we are investing in, make days, for example, it's an opportunity for developers to come together and build new tools, right? Whether it's a Wi-Fi enabled biltong machine, which is like a dried cured meat, or whether it's a self-watering plant, right? It's a lot it takes a lot from us as a business to invest in these things, but we know that this resonates with our community, and therefore they feel like we've taken the time to create these spaces, and they are a lot more invested. And so that's important. Making sure that we action the feedback, being really consistent in how you do that and intentional about how you do that is also a way of showing up for your community, because they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel included in the decision making around the business. I cannot tell you how many times we've maybe done an ad or we've released a new feature on the product, and we have people from the community, like, in a channel, in a public forum, give us a feedback and say, this doesn't work. And our CEO is there. Like, he'll go, he monitors that, he'll engage, he'll comment. That is not one way. That is, I'm feeling like I'm part of something, I'm invested in growing this. And then what's been great for OfferZen is that we started doing this from the start of our business. Our founders are both developers. They exited a few startups before they founded OfferZen. And so they deeply understood the challenges around building tech communities in South Africa. So the initial stages of our business was them showing up at events, listening and asking questions. When we started doing swag, like showing up with a bag of t-shirts, being there, wanting to really show that they want to understand, they want to help grow, and instead of making it a one-way thing. And we've seen that journey in South Africa where the community has grown over time, and you have a lot more people that's way more invested in you and in your business. They feel part of it in some way. They probably found 1 or 2 jobs using OfferZen. And in that way, we deliver on our brand promise. So it's kind of like, this circular system that is, we invest, we believe in community, so we invest in community, we value the feedback, and we optimize for that. Our people are present, whether it's, head of engagement or CEO or our community managers. And in that way, you have the buy-in and you can foster the buy-in from your community. So it's not just a one-way street, it's actually a living, breathing organism.
Oh, I absolutely love that. We use the word ecosystem quite a bit here at Juno, and I think that's exactly what communities and really organizations, when we think about community, events are part of that ecosystem. Community members are part of it.
100%.
Your branding, your swag, like your company community is that whole ecosystem and all that you do. And it takes all of us, internally and community members to make that a success.
100%. And just on that, the thing that often gets lost when we talk about community is it's almost like we see our one community as something that needs to be protected and kept really tight in terms of audience and all of those sorts of things. But really, we are part of this ecosystem, like you said. And so beyond just building our own community, we spend a lot of money investing in other tech communities, enabling community organizers to do more of what they do, because a thriving community ecosystem is great for tech. More people are learning, more people are connecting, more people are sharing, and ultimately that's great for the broader ecosystem.
Absolutely. I mean, one of our taglines here at Juno is advancing the world for good through human connection. And I think that's exactly what you guys are doing. And at the end of the day, we're all humans. And the more we can embrace ourselves as individuals and humans, I think we can build inclusive communities. We can use digital and tech opportunities to connect people around the world like we are today. So I absolutely love that. So as we're wrapping up here and kind of closing out, a final thought. So you guys took an approach to community from the very beginning. When OfferZen started, that was part of your mission, what you guys wanted. Not everyone does that. So if you were to give a piece of advice on someone's wanting to start community, they want to dive into this, they have an existing brand, where would they start? Like, what's the first thing that they should do to think about building a digital inclusive community?
I'll give them the first thing and two bonus things. The first thing is go and spend time in the spaces where the people that you want to make part of your community are currently hanging out with almost no intent. You just want to go and learn. You just want to go and experience, and you just want to understand. When you get community right, which is built on trust, shared goals, shared mission, and people investing the time and effort to keep it going. If you get that right, it's a huge source of just understanding. Whether it's you see a community as customers or just part of a larger ecosystem. So go and find out where these people are and go spend time getting to know them, understanding and learning. And what's great about that is often you can find organic opportunities from there. So either to work with the existing community, or you can see where the gaps are, right? So when you are attending events, for instance, use these opportunities for gathering as much information as possible to inform how you build community. So firstly, like go and play where they are and make sure that you go in to learn and understand as much as possible. Then the thing about organic opportunities that comes out from that, be ready to jump on those things, right? So if you are still it's sometimes hard to build internal buy-in for community activities, but this becomes really important. The worst thing you can do when starting, or one of the worst things you can do when starting community, is doing it in fits and starts and being inconsistent, right? Because essentially those first people that you'll engage, because maybe you've now recognized there's a gap for whatever, bringing in speakers who speak about their shared failure, whatever the case may be. And then you bring that in, and then you actually see, this doesn't really work, or it's not bringing the right kinds of people, and then you kind of give up and then you try something else. So really having that internal buy-in that we might not win at this, but we're gonna give it a while. Like, we're gonna give this a year, we're gonna give it 2 years and see how we can be consistent and build that over time. I think that's important. And then over-optimize for trust. Over-optimize for trust, because when you are collecting or bringing people together around shared vision, shared goals, etc., and you have clear rules of engagement for how we show up as community, trust that you will deliver on that is essential. If I'm signing up for a community and I just want a space where, as a manager or a first-time manager, I want to connect with other first-time managers in a safe environment with no judgment, you as community organizer are responsible for holding and creating that space, right? And for being clear around how we operate when we are in the space together, and then making that happen, because in that way, I'll come back next time, right? Because I know what to expect and I know that it will happen. So for me, it's being there, making sure that you're gathering the lessons and taking the insights, finding the opportunities to create shared value or added value based on what you know. That might be organic, but making sure that it's consistent and you give yourself time to run with it, and then over-optimize for building trust. People know what they get, it's predictable, you will make sure that you honor the rules of engagement, people feel safe, all of those sorts of things, especially in a world where we're becoming a lot more fractured and a lot more, hard to have sort of conversations in spaces that kind of equal fitting. If you can get that right for your community, that's a massive win. So there's 3 things.
Oh, I mean, I preach all the time, trust and consistency. So I love that that's sort of where your answer went, because consistency is the key to building a really strong community. And the more you can build trust and consistency, I mean, I can't tell you how many people are like, well, we have a community. And I'm like, well, what'd you do with it lately? Like, what have you done to engage your people? It's not just if you build it, they will come. If you build it and engage them, they will stay. So I absolutely love that. And I think that's a perfect place to end. Go ahead.
I just want to add one more thing, which is what I 100% believe. If you can get that right, if you can get that trust right, and you create spaces where people can connect and come together around that, the potential for impact and the things that can come out of that is limitless. When you put people in a room that is intentionally created for them and to work towards things that they share, that connection that's enabled from that really is phenomenal. New ideas, organic collaboration, new innovations, and that, that's the lifeblood of community.
Yes, yes, all the things. Yes. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Amazing, amazing. Well, I thank you so much for this invigorating conversation. I mean, we kind of talked about a lot of different things, but I think you just wrapped up in a perfect sentence of its unlimited possibilities, when you build your community and create that safe space. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we're all trying to do is connect people, advance people, and make sure that they have a place to meet like-minded people around a shared goal or vision, opportunity, interest, whatever it might be. So thank you for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to have you, and we're very much looking forward to doing this again sometime in the near future. And make sure you guys tune into the next episode. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Let this story inspire you to the serious work needed to build an inclusive digital community that makes a difference for your network and your brand. For more conversations like this one, be sure to subscribe to the show at junolive.com/podcast. Don't forget to share this show with your network so we can all learn from each other how to build inclusive communities. We'll be talking more about this episode on LinkedIn, where you'll find us under Juno Live. See you on the next episode.